Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Pensacola, Florida, it's time for Pensacola Business Radio. Now, here are your Business Radio X hosts.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Keith over here, broadcasting live from downtown Pensacola, and do I have a show for you? I am surrounded by the Godfather himself, Mr. Stanley Harper, Dr. Stanley Harper.
They call me everything, Keith.
That's it.
I got a lot of job titles.
They
Conflict resolution specialist, I guess.
Yes, we'll stick with that for today, for today.
All right.
And then, Mr. Jackson, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All the way over from Alabama.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know who you are and what you do, can we have the 30-second speech?
Yeah.
I heard you were good at those.
I am CEO and chairman of a global teleconference company, Moreson Conferencing, that does teleconference services in 65 countries. And we have been I founded the company back in 1996, so quite a while. But a few years ago, I also received a diplomatic appointment from Japan. I serve as Honorary Consul General in Japan for the state of Alabama and do a lot of work here in Northwest Florida with Stan over the last 5 years.
5
since
years
we got started
we've known
doing
each other.
that. Yeah, and when you look at combining your business career and diplomatic career, it opens up some really interesting opportunities to come down to Pensacola and get on a radio show on a Monday morning.
Yeah, and play some guitar, hang out for a little while.
That's right, yeah.
So, so in that role, it's all about relationships, isn't it?
Very much.
Yeah.
I live by a credo, and that is a smart man knows everything, but a wise man knows everybody.
That works, huh?
It works out for me.
Connecting dots, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, connect this dot for me then. I want to know how you found out that you were a descendant of King Henry VIII.
Oh, that was really, really, and it wasn't something I found out early on. It was only in about the last 10 years. There's a cousin on the parent side who just started doing all kind of research when this Ancestry.com thing came out, and then got off of that and did his own research. Actually, has gone back even several generations prior to Henry VIII. But yeah, and the interesting part about that, this guy named John Parrott, who we came through, was actually dispatched to be the ambassador for the king to Ireland.
Okay.
Now, you sit and watch this whole family lineage leave England and come across to North Carolina, work their way down to northeast Alabama, settle down into central Alabama. And throughout all that time, there's never been any intermarriage or any marriage with the Irish until me.
Until you.
Yes, I married a girl. We have 2 red-headed, blue-eyed boys, and her family are descendants of the Cork clan, as well as some families up in Antrim County, which is now in Northern Ireland. But yeah, that's the redheads have now entered back into the
bloodline. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So does that entitle you to any like crown jewels or anything?
No. And here's what's really interesting. Stateside, that makes some really big news, but in England, they know.
They're like, yeah, whatever.
He was non-selective and very prolific.
Sure.
That's right.
Sure. I mean, we've all heard the stories. So, well, that's very cool. A fun little fact about you for sure. So as I'm reading through your bio and as we've been talking before the show, you talked about the teleconference and being in 65 countries and global. So for a fellow entrepreneur, I like to think of like, how does your mind shift from selling to the neighbor to selling to 65 countries?
Oh, it was really interesting. It was about 2001. We started seeing some real price erosion stateside. And I looked at our customer base, and we had some customers that we were only doing business with in the United States. And the reason why is because there was no cohesive, true global conference call service. Sure, you get in a conference call from France that was U.S.-based, but you had to dial a U.S. number. So you've got not only your conferencing services cost, but your $1 plus a minute international long-distance service. So sat down with a couple of long-distance providers in England and one that was doing some international toll-free services, which at the time you couldn't take a French toll-free number and terminate it in the States. We worked through this company in England to get that done, and we built out this global network so that if you're in France, England, South Africa, Japan, it's all a local call on a global conference call. And so then you take your costs way, way, way down.
Yeah.
And we started finding out where is the best market to enter. And the best market was in England for our first customer.
Yeah.
Globally, one,
They did used to rule the world,
Right. Right. Not much language barrier, but easy repatriation of funds and all that. And I worked through, amazingly, back then, I worked through some of the consul generals in Atlanta and Miami and Houston to help raise, although they're responsible for all the diplomatic affairs, they're also responsible for creating business opportunities between home country and jurisdiction.
Right.
So the British consul general at the time, Michael Bates and Martin Rickard, helped us with some introductions, and we got this really large customer that was that had operations in 35 countries, and we just started growing on the backs of that.
Yeah.
And then when that customer then had other folks on the call, and they would hear, "Hello, welcome to Moreson Conferencing," and we would private label that for that customer. Then we started getting their suppliers coming to us, and it was a really, really nice snowball effect. And
Very neat.
And we grew the company to where we now have operations in 65 countries.
How many British ladies does it take to do that for all those phone calls?
One friend of mine.
Just one?
That's right. She actually lives in Liverpool. She's from the Mayfair section of London. And when you call our conference access number, you hear her. And one day, I just asked her, I said, "Would you read this into this microphone?"
Right.
And it was
It's
wonderful.
just spot on, huh?
And so, spot on, exactly. And about a year later, I was back visiting them in Liverpool, and she said, "Mark, how many people have heard me?" I said, "It's like, on average, like 2,000 people a day." She said,
Wow.
"Oh, wow, I should make a business out of that."
It's really sorry you missed that boat.
It's really cool.
Sign
yeah.
here, please.
Exactly.
So, so really, it's doing business is the same when you go to when you start scaling that large, or there's some adjustments there.
There are. You've got to look at, like I said, repatriation of funds. Some countries will make you set up a company in that country.
Right.
And the issue is the taxation. You end up making profits there, but you need to get them back to the U.S. and bingo, they tax them there, and then when you send them back to the U.S., they tax them again.
Right.
So you need to look at countries where you don't have to do that, and there's ways that you decide, okay, where do we build? Do we build to countries that have easy repatriation, or do we set up another company there? You got to look at currency exchange. You got to look at market, your market conditions.
Yeah.
Is the market fertile? Is it a new market? Where are your conversion rates?
Yeah.
Whenever we went to market in the UK, we were fighting it out, duking it out at 3 cents a minute conference call here in the US. But over there, the market was like, if it was 3 pence a minute,
Right.
when you did the conversion, that was 6 cents.
Yeah.
So just
You've already
the same
doubled before you even came out of the gate. Yeah.
Exactly right. And when you do that, then you get to be a different level company because now you're a global company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's all the way that you look at how you want to grow your business. Now, what happened with that? Now, when we started prospecting for new customers, it got very expensive.
Sure.
Now, I got a lot of frequent flyer points on that. Delta and Hilton, very happy.
Yeah.
But your prospecting and your cost of sale goes sky high.
Right.
So, but then that makes you concentrate on a different size customer.
Right.
A global customer, not just like a local UK customer.
Yeah. So you're going after
changed
the big
entire-
guys then.
Yeah, it changed your dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it just baffles me. Like when I start thinking things that big, my head just goes and just kind of doesn't work. But you're talking different legalities for each country. You're talking about different ways of culture and dealing with, making business deals and stuff. I mean, talk about a massive culture shock and having to educate yourself.
It's
just
complete immersion.
to have to
it
talk
really
to
is,
these guys.
'cause you better know how to do business in Birmingham or Birmingham.
Yeah.
In Rome, Georgia, Rome, Italy.
He's
Moscow.
practiced that. I just totally practiced that.
But you have to know.
Yeah.
You have to know how to,
And you didn't have Google, so you had to go old
I
school.
started when we didn't have email.
Yeah.
I remember the first Alta Vista was my first email was like 196.36.208 at CompuServe. But Alta Vista was the first search engine.
Right.
And when we started Moreson, I had two partners. One I'm with that last name that we use, the M-O-R-E, and me, Jackson. Well, I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Alta Vista comes up, and then I start searching. Well, there's a Moreson winery down in South Africa. I didn't know. I thought I made the name up. And it's been a long time, 20 some odd years, but I finally gotten a bottle of Moreson wine at my house. It's really cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
But then there's Moreson Healthcare.
Right.
Now there's Moreson, the cafeterias.
But not spelled the same. This
Correct.
is Moreson.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's, I know there's Moreson grocery store in England too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
they're big ones. So, well, so very neat perspective. I also wonder, how does foreign policy really translate to compared to business? Like, you read it and it reads, but how does it translate when you're in business and actually having to follow those rules and stuff?
Well,
is it conducive to growing?
It is. Many times when you look at policies that are being put out by a government, an administration, they're not really meant to affect you now, immediately.
Right.
You've got to adjust. If you have to adjust, you have to adjust for what's in the future.
Yeah.
And trade tariffs. A lot of Chinese companies, a lot of Japanese. I'll mention Japan because I'm intimately familiar there. Look at what Mazda Toyota did in Alabama. Instead of producing those cars in Japan and sending them here. Now, I'm not so sure that this is exactly why they decided to do this. We're very, very happy. Our Secretary of Commerce, Greg Canfield, and his group, the mayor of Huntsville, Tommy Battle, and all of their group, the governor of the state of Alabama, did a wonderful job in showing that we had a business climate conducive for them to take this partnership, first ever, between two competing car companies in Japan, and come to Alabama. But what happens is now they're producing those cars that they would have produced in Japan, hitting that tariff coming in, they're producing them here.
Right.
You don't have to, you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Service industries like mine, you've got to look around privacy issues. We had started to enter the market in China some years ago. And through relationships with some international lawyers, I said, look, your issue there is the Chinese government reserves the right to record every phone call that comes in or goes out. You're like, really? Mm-hmm. And so how does that fly in the face of our privacy issues here?
Right.
So we never did pursue that direction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you have to look at what and why are governments putting these regulations on. Sometimes they're completely self-serving. Sometimes they're for their own economic benefit, like the speed traps between Birmingham and your beach here. And it is
Gulf breeze.
and you have to look at that and adjust your business. And sometimes you look and say, well, that is not a market we're going to go into.
Yeah.
Because the cost of entry is way too high.
Yeah.
So that's what you end up having to look at.
So it sounds to me like at some point you probably surrounded yourself with a whole bunch of people that knew a whole bunch about this stuff, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, and then I got to know a good bit of it as well.
So
let me say this.
Yeah.
On our first anniversary, we were taking a trip across country to go visit a potential customer.
Right.
And we were just about asleep, and I sat up. I said, hey, wake up. What? I said, I got it. It's got to be toll-free. What? I said, the way that you get people in from another country to our conference calls, you got to eliminate international long distance.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, go back to sleep. But you got to live
But
it.
write that down, please.
Right. You got to live it, and you got to understand it and figure it out. But, yeah, you just have to immerse yourself in your business.
Yeah.
My father didn't teach me to be a 9-to-5 guy, punch a clock, and
the work-life balance is not a thing.
Right.
It's not real.
Exactly.
It's integration. I think if you're on the entrepreneur side or you own your own business.
Correct. And I heard it said that owning your own business is like sleeping like a baby.
No.
You wake up every hour crying.
That'll work. That'll work. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. It is definitely the emotional roller coaster that I don't think anybody really warns you about, or if they do, that you don't pay attention because you're excited about your business.
Right. So. We have gone, and I feel like I'm always in this entrepreneurial effort because things in the service industry, especially technology and telecom, and the intersection of those, are constantly changing. Some years ago, a couple of companies figured out, hey, we could do conference calls and offer them for free. And the way they did that is they started out with a little local exchange carrier over in Iowa, I believe it was, and they started just terminating calls there with a toll-free number, and this became free conferencing and these other companies like that. But it was free to the customer, but the long-distance companies were having to pay a very, very high price to get that call to terminate there. That now has been through FCC Regulation 1868 has now being phased out. It was called traffic pumping. And so now what's happening with us is saying, okay, we've got this group of customers now that works very well for us, but now there's a whole lot of conferencing that's coming back on market. Now, when these businesses come back on market saying, well, we can't do this free stuff anymore, now you have a different level of conference calling you didn't have 10 years ago, and that's the integration of online, web conferencing, embedded video.
Yeah.
How did that come about was very simple. When we started entering the Russian market, because we had a customer that had a lot of operations in Russia, we went over there and we found out that not many people were using landlines. They were using a handheld phone.
Listen to landlines.
Right. And they weren't doing it across standard telephone networks. They were doing it broadband because they had built out their broadband pipes so big, and we were still so small. So now with the build out of rural broadband networks, but great Wi-Fi and internet connectivity, you can pump all of this traffic, be it audio, data, and video, which is extremely heavy. But you've got enough bandwidth now to be able to do that.
However, that may not last very long from what I understand, is that we are coming on board pretty quick.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's this constant change that you've got to watch out for. Many times it's like, oh, I'll go on vacation, and you come back, and your whole neighborhood has changed.
You need a vacation from vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's this constant change, and it's complicated. If we only did business in the United States, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all. It's relatively easy.
Yeah.
But if you want to grow a global company, it gets complicated.
So you're almost forced to go after that larger pool of revenue stream just because you've kind of milked out the one that you got here.
You're right.
Which is hard to think with how many millions of people in the U.S. that you can tap out. But I would assume you just got to go for the big one, right?
That's correct.
Hey, Mark, just real quick, like you'd mentioned Russia and doing business with them. We have some Russian guests in Pensacola today. Tell us the business climate in Russia. While you're talking, you've got a lot of knowledge on that global aspect.
Well, to your Russian guest, I would say, Здравствуйте, как дела? I had a few years of Russian lessons, and I'm not proficient, but it's really cool to hold a conversation with a Russian in their language in Alabama because they don't expect that.
You got to do it with a bottle of vodka in your hand.
That's right. What I find that's interesting about Russia and the former Soviet blocs, you remember I had a meeting with President Gorbachev some years ago.
Right.
And when I told him what my company did, he said, look, your company could be the key to the success of companies in the former Soviet Union. Mr. President, why do you say that? It's because the key to global competition is global communication. And they got it. I mean, huge country. Look at the time zones that they cover. And to be able to conduct business in that country, they almost had to have a global mindset anyway, because they cover, 11 time zones?
Mm-hmm.
But go back in my lifetime. I'm 56 years old. We've gone from the enemy to being partners, now to from the political side, and it's not too cool to talk about, I met with Russians the other day, or we got Russian visitors coming in. But when you look at it from a business perspective, it is all a global economy, and I think that they, at one point in there, started driving that.
Okay.
It makes sense too. I mean, business is ultimately the vehicle that it's universal, right? So it can be used to move whatever you need to move. And the market is the playing field.
That's
so
correct.
Just got to be better than the next guy.
A lot of times people will say, how can that be done? Because the market allows it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
We've got a company in Birmingham that I'm sure operates here now called Shipt. And Shipt started just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you go online and order your groceries, and bingo, that afternoon they're at your house.
Yeah.
And
man, I wish I'd invented that app.
Well, what was it? Target came in and bought them for almost $500 million.
Yeah.
A guy, Bill Smith, Birmingham, brilliant guy. He and his father just got together and said, okay, we got this new group of people who are out now in the workforce, and they're interested in apps. How do we put this together? Bingo.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
My wife was telling me the other day, she said, you don't really have to leave the house anymore.
You really don't
have to go shopping and look. Payless shut down 21,000 stores. in the process of doing it right now.
Yeah.
My thought is, why just shut the stores, but don't go bankrupt. Just put it all online.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How's the saying go? It's the largest hotel company doesn't own a single hotel. Largest
Best
cab,
Western.
or Airbnb.
Yeah, exactly.
So largest cab company doesn't own a single cab. And then what was the largest retail store only has like a couple brick and mortars, right?
That's correct.
So
That's right.
I mean, just it's amazing that the barriers of entry are gone, right? So you no longer have to have the college degree or be from the right side of the tracks or any of that.
That's right.
You got a laptop, you pretty much got a shot in this day and age, to make it happen. But nothing replaces relationships in building those. And so talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a skill that you either got it or you're going to struggle with it for a really long time before you get it.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. I came down a few weeks ago, and we got a chance to talk to some students in the entrepreneurial side of U.S. University of Northwest Florida. They blew me away at how they knew, I've got this business idea. How do I get it out to market? In its fact, I've got to be personable. Mm-hmm. Certainly, a smart man knows everything, but a wise man knows everybody.
Yeah.
And the title of my talk really was Intersection of Business and Diplomacy. And it's not diplomacy knowing governmental regulations. It's how to work with other people. And if you want somebody to do business with you, you've got to give them a reason to do that. And you've got to understand, why would they buy your product? Why would they use your service?
Right.
And the ability to just sit and eyeball to eyeball, handshake to handshake, and communicate on that level. So many people who are coming out of our universities today don't get it. Mm-hmm. Their interpersonal communications are all by text.
Right.
And when you sit to have a blown out conversation, they'll never look you in the eye.
Yeah. Let alone pick up a phone.
Right. Exactly right. But what do? They sit at home, or they sit at the office and order their groceries online. They order their shoes online. The direction that part of our society is pushing does not put together and foster those face-to-face communications. And then the groups that they do face-to-face with are all the same.
Right.
My father taught me many years ago is that you've got to be you, but you've also got to be respectful of other people.
Sure.
And to do that, shaking somebody's hand, giving them your word about what you would do, and following through with it is gold. Mm-hmm. And I fear that we're coming to a point to where all of a sudden that's going to have to be relearned in a smack in the face.
I think you're already there. Yeah. I think you have the one side going down the direction you just mentioned, and then you have the other side, the actual market, moving in the direction of it's no longer. It doesn't matter what product you sell me because you're the product now, right? Yes. It's the identification with the brand is only so deep these days, unless it's a something you can relate to on that human level, right? And business is becoming very personable. It's even with the internet and stuff, it's still, you want to have access to a person.
That's correct.
And like know and trust, right? And I don't think that'll ever change.
Look at what Chick-fil-A did.
Yeah.
I mean, my pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's funny too.
Nonverbal, and we're forgetting nonverbal communication. A lot of other cultures, like Japan, taught us that.
It's like 90%, right?
Look at Washington. What's the media do when they're always looking for nonverbal expressions to see if we're getting the truth from our politicians? Yeah. Nonverbal goes a long ways in business dealing.
So, that's correct. And with Japan's they're pretty strict culture that way, right? I mean, they have a lot of the personable stuff in their business culture.
Very much, very much, and they're very ordered.
Yeah, which
no
I like.
one told me this, but this is what I've coined, and that is in Japan, not just physically, but in the culture, everything has its place, and there's a place for everything.
It's mise en place.
Look, exactly. Tokyo, 35 million people. No trash on the street.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. So it can be done,
yes,
by the way.
Exactly. And what happens is when they have a wrapper from a cookie or a piece of cake, put it in your pocket. When you get home or get to the office, there's a trash bin there. Don't just throw it out on the ground. Complete respect. And that word respect is what I see that drives that country and that culture. And it's respect for Mother Nature, for Mother Earth, for your mother, for your father, for the organization that you're a part of, to know that you have a place to play in that entire spectrum. And it's all about respect.
I think they have a better grip on the collective.
Yes,
Very much. That we're all working to that same goal, and then they can separate the ego from, not that there's anything wrong with being yourself and all of that, but people that work towards a common goal build great things, right?
Exactly. You're 100% right.
And look how much the U.S. spends on environmental.
Yeah.
And we're still throwing trash on the ground.
Yeah. Although, in all fairness, we have a lot more land.
Yeah.
As you've gotten into the Japan stuff, but let's talk about some of the other things. Just you've got quite the genre of places you've worked for and things that you've done. I can imagine your skill set's probably pretty incredible. But you've been all over the board. So tell us a little bit about some of your experience.
Well, I found out some years ago that you better be prepared to give back to your community. And I got involved with a couple of small charities. One of them, really cool, it was the oldest baseball park in the world, which is located in Birmingham, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, until the Braves Stadium was built, we had the oldest ballpark, Rickwood Field, and the newest ballpark, Regents Field.
I've been to both of them.
And they're great. They're great places. The history that exists at Rickwood Field is amazing. And to say, I've got relationships in Japan where baseball is really, really big. Right.
Huge.
For an ambassador, head of a company, a mayor to come to Birmingham and take them to the legendary Rickwood Field.
Mm-hmm.
It's just major.
Yeah.
It's cultural. I've been...
Which they know about, too. I'm always amazed at how much the citizens of other countries that they go to know about America and about American, like things that like I didn't know about my community, they knew,
Right.
Because they dig, I think they dig a little bit deeper, than the surface.
I served on a board in Birmingham of an organization that's called Kid One Transport. And what they do is they're supported by Mercedes and others, but Mercedes provides the vehicles for Kid One to go out into distressed areas to bring children to their doctor appointments. That is truly making a difference.
Yeah.
I believe that when you die, you better have left this place a better place than you found it.
Sure.
And if you did, and I'm not talking about changing the world as a whole, but you change the world of one person. You change your world. You change the world around you.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much.
It's the butterfly effect.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to do. My wife has chided me sometime about why do you serve on all these boards? And I told her, it is something inside me, and I know where it came from. It came from my mother and father. There's something in me that wants to be a part of the greater good.
Yeah.
Now, you think you go to board meeting, 3 hours a month.
Yeah.
You could be producing some revenue for your family.
Yeah.
Well, look, produce your revenue.
Sure.
Find out where you need to be, but help out your fellow man.
Yeah.
And if there's an opportunity to do that on a global scale, that's even better. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things I always remind some of the interns and stuff that go through is that there's other kinds of revenue besides money.
Exactly.
Right. There's emotional return. There's that investment that you're right. You're part of something greater than yourself. The 51-49 is what I tell my kids. 51 give, 49 take.
There you go.
If you live by that, then you're going to be just fine.
That's good.
So, and the next right thing, I always think that's a good one for them to stick in their head.
Dan Cathy at Chick-fil-A has this presentation he makes called The Second Mile. Not the extra mile, but it's about how the Romans expected the Jews to carry their bags for 1 mile.
Right.
Okay, that was what was required. You don't have to do any other. You carry my stuff for 1 mile. But now you voluntarily go the second mile, which makes you a servant leader.
Right.
And I think and this is not a commercial for Chick-fil-A, but
Right.
Dan Cathy is a very personal friend of mine. But the culture that they built around there, literally, I go back to say, my pleasure. And it is a pleasure to go into a Chick-fil-A versus some other fast food places. And it's healthy as fast food can get. But it is building that culture of saying, I will go the second mile for you.
So previous to all this, I was a chef for 25 years in the hospitality industry, and I always said, great service can make up for bad food.
Yeah.
Bad food can never make up for great service, or good food can never make up for bad service.
Right. And
it's the truth. I think, man, sometimes you could just sell ice to an Eskimo if you're just personable enough, right? I mean, I don't need this, but I like you so much, I'm going to buy it anyway. So, What do you think has led to so much success with the industry and the business that you've been able to bring into Alabama's been able to bring into their what do I call it? Their net, their web.
Their global web.
Because it's growing big.
It is. You look at, there's many factors, but they all interconnect and build on each other. The education system in Alabama. We've got a phenomenal 2-year college system. We've got a phenomenal 4-year college system. We've got a phenomenal UA system. Auburn University in the engineering is top notch. Mm-hmm. But my son goes and he's in computer science at University of Alabama, Huntsville. Very specialized in the engineering and technology computer side of things. And you take a human through some really good public school systems and or private school systems, but the public school systems, and then you take them into and your idea is don't lose them to New York to go to college.
Right, sure.
Don't keep them in state. So that means that you've got to create that 2-year college system, that 4 years college system that prepares them for a job. Okay, now they step out of the job. Bingo, there is graduation. Everything's cool. Where do I go?
Yeah.
Oh, do I go to New York?
Yeah, the missing piece.
Alabama has gotten very good over the last 20-some-odd years through their administrations, their economic development directors and all, of creating a business climate in where you don't have that talent drain going outside the state.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, certainly you create the workforce development within those colleges, within those areas. That means that people take pride in what they're doing. I remember whenever Hyundai was looking at coming down to Montgomery, some of the folks, wait a minute, we got this foreign country that is coming here. We fought them. No, get your history right. Hyundai is not the North Koreans.
Right.
It's the capitalist society.
Even then, that was 50 years ago. By the way.
Exactly.
Let's move on.
Exactly right. But it is training your people to stay in your state and be a part of that local economy that is present on a global scale.
Yeah.
And I can go back to Bob Riley, I can go back to Fob James, I can go back to the economic development directors through there. And the economic development that we have today, very good in changing from Alabama Development Office title to Department of Commerce, Greg Canfield. He's a great guy from Vestavia, where I grew up. As a city councilman, owned an insurance company, knew what it meant to grow a business. And he, partnership with Governor Ivey and others throughout the state, have just created this atmosphere that is inviting to businesses to grow.
Yeah.
And it's what you had, and it was purposeful.
Yeah.
It was not by accident. It was designed to do that. Department of Commerce has coined this "Made in Alabama," not made in the USA.
Right.
Made in Alabama.
Sure.
And that is the pride of we've got technology going out of Alabama. We got cars going out of Alabama. We got wood chips going to Alabama. But guess what? They're all made in Alabama.
Right.
And people should take a look at that.
So is that something that is duplicatable? Is that the right word?
Replicatable.
Replicatable with other states, whether they're southeast or northeast, or is it something that can just turnkey and move?
I think it is. And let me say this. Some people may be listening and say, oh, it's all about incentives. No, it's not all about incentives.
Sure.
It's creating a quality workforce. You've done it here in Northwest Florida.
Yeah.
The advantage that you have here is you've already, by accident, you've got a global entity here, the military.
Yeah.
And your economy feeds into and out of that military economy.
Yeah.
And it is wonderful. Northwest Florida has done a great job of putting itself on the world stage, but also creating tourism for us to come down and stay at your hotels. One of the best beaches, second to South Alabama,
is Pensacola. I knew he was going to say that.
Pensacola Beach. And it's always been wonderful here. The people are inviting, but you come down and you go somewhere and you spend $55 on a meal. That's $55 you didn't have, but you had to create that atmosphere for us to do it.
Yeah.
But I believe that Pensacola, Northwest Florida, Mississippi, Iowa, Washington, the United States has got this can-do attitude of saying, look, we are a global superpower.
Right.
Militarily, yes. But we're a global superpower from a business perspective because we have invested in our people to make opportunities for them on a global scale.
Yeah.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, another thing that I saw, Mark, too, in Birmingham, going back to nonverbal, too, I noticed y'all train a lot of your economic representatives like y'all. You offer a training like on German culture, Japanese culture. I saw that. I really wanted to attend those programs. I wasn't able to. I don't see that going on in a lot of economic development communities around the country.
Well, Alabama-Germany partnership, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They have this program, I believe it's once a month, once every 2 months, called Stammtisch, which really gets the German community and the American community together, and they speak German at a restaurant. Japan American Society of Alabama, which is where I'm affiliated with very closely, has created an atmosphere to where the Japanese companies that come over, who bring their executives over and their families, wait a minute, we're in Alabama. Where are all the Japanese? Well, the Japan American Society of Alabama makes sure that they connect that. Right. So it all intertwines. It doesn't exist in a silo, and that's how you grow your state, your city, your community on a global scale.
You got to get it to stop thinking like a silo.
Exactly.
Sure.
And I think that's where Alabama has really expanded. We don't see that kind of training and education going on in our economic development communities.
Sort of the roadmap sort of just laid out for you, and you can kind of go from place to place. What? How much would you say, if you could, statistically speaking, percentage-wise, is it the relationship versus the actual business that's at hand?
Look, it's 100% first, the relationship. Yeah. But then once you make that relationship, you better be able to back it up with a quality product.
So you got to deliver, got to execute, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if it screws up, they now know who to come to.
Right, or not come to.
Right, exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah. What do you think were some of the infrastructure challenges with Alabama with bringing in larger companies? When everybody decided, let's go, hunting on the global thing, what were some of those challenges, you think?
Road.
Yeah.
Rail. I think, and keep in mind, this is from a globalist perspective, we don't have good public transportation.
Yeah.
Birmingham, a city, 200,000 people, but a metro area of over 1 million people, you have a bus system.
Yeah.
You don't have a light rail system. I live southeast of town, and if I go into town at certain hours a day, it'll take me an hour or so to get there. That's 30% of the time it takes me to get here.
Yeah.
But you've got to invest in that. And that has been some of Alabama's challenges.
Yeah.
You go from snow, literally snow to sunshine in one day in Alabama.
Yeah.
But you can't go from Birmingham to Mobile on a train.
Right.
Because it only runs to New Orleans.
Yeah.
I would like to see that changed.
Yeah. You've been obviously you've been across the world. London is probably my favorite place for public transportation.
Exactly.
Like they've got it down. Whether it's the train, the tube, the cabs, the buses. I mean, you don't even have to own a car.
Well, and when they tell you that train will arrive at 11:27,
it's there.
It's at 11:27, and it will depart at 11:33.
That's right. And if you're not on it, you miss it.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It is precise.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the challenges that we see, that I believe that we see in Alabama from my perspective is just that, is the movement of people and goods.
Yeah.
And
do you think it's just because there's so much land mass? It's a huge investment?
I think it's a huge investment, but it is the fact that you've got to get rid of the legacy systems that are in place.
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina, a few years ago decided they would put a light rail across their city. Mm-hmm. And you have people in affluent neighborhoods who are riding trains with people who are not from affluent neighborhoods, and they're going to work together downtown.
Right.
And it doesn't matter about, hey, I'm better than you. Because my train seat is the same as yours. It's not my Audi versus your Bentley versus his 35-year-old Mazda or something.
Yeah.
It puts you right there together. And I'm a big fan of public transportation.
Yeah, St. Louis, when they finally finished theirs, it's been fantastic. So, again, another place with great public transportation for the city.
Public transportation doesn't fail.
No, well, yeah.
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 Exactly.
If it does, there's usually a backup not far behind it, you know. What do you see next in your future? Like, what's the next big project you're working on?
We'll come talk about it.
Yeah.
pretty soon. But it is a
Top secret.
it is a global company.
Yeah.
That will assist you from a health perspective when you're either home or around the world or across the country or across the state or across town. And it solves a problem that is not being addressed directly.
Yeah.
And it came out of a personal issue that I had when I was traveling.
You know, I think probably, I can't even give you a percentage, but so many businesses, so many products have happened that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Solve a problem, you can make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you make the world better. A
Right.
better place. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, provided it's a better problem, I guess. So, where do you go from here? You off to the Japan duties or?
I've got a couple of phone calls with some folks in Japan on the way home back
Yeah.
to Birmingham. I was just in Mobile over the weekend for the International Camellia Festival. The camellia flower,
Right.
which I've known since I was in kindergarten was our state flower. But I never knew that it came from Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. You enlightened
And
me on that one too.
It was really cool to watch these people that are really into this. Met a lady who lives in London, who's from Des Moines, Iowa, who's in charge of this organization. I met a guy named George Sawada.
Mm-hmm.
George Sawada's grandfather was Kei Sawada, who is the guy that was one of those ones who brought that flower over here and created all these different hybrid species of it.
Yeah.
I never knew this, that there was so much Japan in Alabama. But no, where do I end up today? I end up at home with
Which
my
is nice.
17-year-old who plays a wonderful basketball player and baseball player, and my wife, and we're going to have dinner at the house. It's been a lot of travel this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it does get a little old sometimes, doesn't it? There's
And
nothing like a home cooked meal.
It's right, but somewhere around 3 o'clock, we have an opportunity with this customer for Moreson Conferencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's chair and CEO. It's me with that conversation to convince them that we're a better fit for their
Yeah.
firm. So it's constant churn.
Yeah. I like the fact that even at the top of your company, you're still the one on sales calls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's good. I don't think that's not because you don't trust your team. I think that's just how invested you are in making sure that it works.
Nothing happens till something gets sold.
Yeah.
And look, we've got folks that understand our network. I understand it. I helped build it. But I don't understand how to make it work.
Right.
You know, if I can flip on a light switch and bingo, see the light come on. I have
Right.
no idea what happens between those.
Yeah. Nor am I touching either one of those
Right,
wires.
that's right. We got great people in our customer service department, great people in our finance, our billing department, our collections department, and all that. But they don't ever have anything to do till something gets sold, and you've got a new customer or a growth in an existing customer. And whether you're a diplomat, an ambassador, a business person, you've got to constantly be selling.
Yeah.
And that's how I view it, and that's kind of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and this was one of the epiphanies I had moving from the culinary world into the entrepreneurial world, but you're always selling. Whether you know it or not, you're always selling. Whether it's just how you look in how you feel going out during the day, or it's the widget, you're constantly having to sell something.
And have you ever noticed that it's your attitude that determines your success?
Absolutely.
Sometimes oh golly, there's that guy. He's constantly complaining. I don't want to go over there. Or like, wow, just his personality is infectious.
Yeah.
And men and women alike, you gravitate to people who are pleasurable to be around, and that's who you choose to do business with.
Yeah. Well, we are pleasure-seeking creatures, so
Very much.
makes sense. If anybody was, because we're getting to the end of time here, so first of all, thank you very much for spending
welcome.
all of the valuable time that I know is very valuable to you with us here today. If anybody wants any more information on all of the things that you work in, where can we send them to?
Well, Moreson.com, Moreson.com. And we're always looking for new customers. So info@Moreson.com, and whether it's a conference call you need for your Florida association or your global company or your U.S., whatever, we're here to serve. And then just keep an eye on what goes on in the Southeast about Japan and its involvement and its growth.
Yeah.
My father, whenever he found out that I was going to get the appointment, he passed away a few months before it actually happened. But he said, the world has changed for the better. I fought the Japanese in World War II.
Right.
Now my son will be their diplomat. And what a great thing to see.
What a good way to look at it.
In his lifetime, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. The marriage of two warring countries.
Yeah.
Building two of the strongest economies together.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to watch, and I'm blessed, I'm pleased, I'm honored to be a part of that process.
Yeah, very cool. I am quite amazed as Stan introduced me to this world, how much business happens between us and Japan, and Alabama and Japan. It's not just trips to Disney World like with cameras and stuff.
That's right.
There's legitimate like aerospace and like really good stuff going on. So it's very neat. But again, thank you for hanging out with us today. I appreciate
Friend,
it.
I like what you're doing, and thanks for letting me play your 12 string.
Yeah, see, just get him with the guitar, man.
Yes,
right.
We're going to have to have him on in your studios now.
Yeah.
For band night.
I know, and first day with the new setup too. So thanks for breaking it in for us. So
Arigato gozaimasu.
see, there he goes. My dad would say you do, and you clean it up. So okay, you guys, you can find us at Picola Radio X on Twitter. You can find us at Picola VRX on Facebook, or you can find us on our website at businessradiox.com or on our live stream at businessradiox.live. And this has been Pensacola Business Radio, where business is good and your work matters.